I feel like Muslim female artists get boxed in. It's like, so if you're a woman and you're Muslim and you're an artist, you have really exciting things that take place. But I know artists and they feel the same, who they just get instantly boxed in. A small gallery or a magazine will contact them and they'll say, what sort of Islamic influenced work have you produced? And maybe that artist isn't producing anything with geometry in it, or a niqabi woman who's got her breasts out, ooh, radical. And then ID magazine wants to have it on the front cover. I just feel like there's too much of that boxing in, and that really frustrates me. Because I feel like Muslim women, outside of being Muslim, have other things that interest them too. And maybe they want to, I don't know, bring that across without having to just be boxed into being a Muslim woman. It happens to be that this is something else as part of their practice, but they go to work, they've got a stethoscope around them, they're talking about gonorrhea. What you can do, link that with spirituality suddenly and do a geometric painting about it. And that's what I mean, it's really ridiculous sometimes. Like normal stuff that we do on a day-to-day, or normal other things beyond just wearing a hijab, my feeling as a hijabi woman in Britain. As lovely as all of that is, it's so saturated, and there's such a huge Muslim community of women. Surely we can't all just be thinking the same thing all the time. I feel like it's the Orientalism thing all over again, like they just want to box you in. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. Let's start that again. Hi, my name is Rahima. I'm an artist and all-rounded creative. I'm also an activist and the co-founder of a human rights organisation called Restless Beings. We work with marginalised and voiceless communities across the world. A lot of that affects the way in which I work within my creativity. I used to work in research. My background is Korean history and organising academic conferences. So it's been quite a change for me over the last few years of doing this, but it's something that I'm looking forward to developing and becoming an artist that can express the relevant crises of the world, but also the things that I see that are beautiful and meaningful, and how I can create a dialogue with that through my work. Okay, so as part of what I do as a creative is I work with clients from all different parts of the world, different kind of practices, from interior design to painting on clothing to illustrations for children's books. Last spring, when a company called AWA, and it's a company that I love and have been following for a long time, contacted me. So the designer found me on Instagram and said, we would like to collaborate with you. He had a collection of 7 abayas and kimonos, and he asked if I would paint each of them. So I had to produce art on each of the abayas, and each piece represented a certain part of the world and the culture and some of the obvious things that we think of. So they could be icons or architecture. I was able to collaborate with a designer that I really loved and respected, and at the same time I was able to think of ways in which art and fashion are interlinked as well. As a result, my work was on a catwalk in Istanbul and again in London as well, and it's been in a capsule collection. The whole collection has now been sold, so it's been, mashallah, a successful project, and it has meant that I've had more exposure. So I've combined my art and my activism together, and key things that have influenced my work is the meaning of suffering, the spirituality and the folk culture that I've seen in the communities that I've met during my travels. And it's essential in the work that I do. So in terms of my activism, I was one of the co-founders of an organisation called Restless Beings, and I guess the organisation became the vehicle for what we felt passionate about, which was how do we make a change for human beings without having to constantly drip feed money to them, and how can we make our contribution towards a fair world. So there was a necessity to create an alternative voice, and we started off as a blog, and that was a decade ago, and now we're a registered British charity and a human rights organisation, and the areas of our interest is women's rights, refugee rights and children's rights, but it's looking at the most vulnerable children, it's looking at the most vulnerable women, it's looking at the refugees that are the most unheard, and it's how can we bring these things together and actually support these communities, but in a way which attracts young people. It's creative, it's honest and transparent, and I think that's when Restless Beings was born. So I work with women's rights issues in Kyrgyzstan. We helped push towards government legislation. We work with street children in Bangladesh, looking at children who have been trafficked. We work with the Rohingya refugees, amongst other refugee communities. So it's very predictable to say I'm passionate. It is literally what I live for. It's something that I would like to look back at in 30 years and think, I've made my contribution, but I've been also able to make some sort of tangible change that now the community can sustain themselves. I've been commissioned to do certain work which I feel is unethical, and I've always kind of thought, nope, that's not the client that I want to work with. So it impacts how I process my commissions as well in my day-to-day life. I'd like my artwork to be acknowledged as just art for what it is. And if it encourages someone to feel anything about spirituality or about Islam or about a suffering or a woman's feeling or any of those kind of themes, then for me that dialogue is exactly what I would have wanted to achieve. I think it was kind of drawing every single day, painting as often as I could, made me realize this is something that I want to be able to wake up and do. You know, when you think about what you want to leave behind in this world, and I wanted it to be the activism and the artwork that I do, and so that's kind of how I found myself within it. And if they're interested in being an artist, do it as soon as you can. If you're a student or if you're in a particular career, I mean, it's very naive to say that you can just dive in, quit your job and just become an artist. We have to be practical about these things. So figure out your finances, get yourself a part-time job if you need to, just to pay for the materials and your bills, and then just pursue it and get yourself a good social media platform page. Find yourself a mentor if you can. Draw every single day, share everything that you're sketching and drawing. Find within yourself what you want to share and what is your visual language, and make it accessible and available online so people can reach you. So that's my advice. I think I'm keen to see hijabi women wanting to define themselves outside of just the hijab, outside of what it means to be wearing the hijab and what the hijab means to them and means to the world, and how to negotiate a space wearing the hijab. As exciting as that dialogue is, as much as we want to make that visible, we're more than that. We want more than that, and we should be able to represent more than that. And there is so much going on in here, and that needs to come out, and that is outside of the hijab or our spirituality. It's more about our essence as a human being, our needs, our skill sets. What have we learned in 20 or 30 years of our life? What are the skills that we've developed, and how can we put that across? Whatever it is, to just think outside of the box, think outside of our hijab and what it means to be a Muslim woman, and just see that as part of our life and our spirituality.